The late morning sun pierced through the dense canopy of the Great Smoky Mountains, casting dappled light across the winding trail where Ethan Caldwell and his 7-year-old son Noah hiked in companionable silence. The air was crisp with the scent of pine and damp earth, a familiar comfort to Ethan, a 40-year-old park ranger whose life had been shaped by these Tennessee woods. His broad frame, weathered by years of outdoor work, moved with steady purpose, his boots crunching softly on the gravel path. Noah, small but wiry with his mother's unruly chestnut curls, and Ethan's thoughtful gray eyes, skipped ahead clutching a worn notebook where he sketched leaves and animal tracks. The forest was their sanctuary, a place where Ethan could escape the weight of his past 5 years, since Sarah, his wife, died in a car accident, leaving him to raise Noah alone in their hand-built cabin at the edge of the Smokies. The cabin, with its sturdy cedar walls and a stone chimney that puffed smoke into the starry sky, was a testament to Ethan's resilience, filled with Noah's drawings pinned to the walls, and a single photo of Sarah laughing by a campfire, her smile a bittersweet echo. Today's hike was meant to be routine, a chance to teach Noah about the forest's secrets. But the boy's sudden halt snapped Ethan from his thoughts. Noah stood frozen, his head cocked, one finger raised as if testing the wind. "Dad, listen," he whispered, his voice trembling with curiosity. "Someone's knocking." Ethan frowned, hearing nothing but the rustle of leaves and a distant woodpecker's tap. He knelt beside Noah, following the boy's gaze to a patch of earth just off the trail, where the soil looked freshly turned unnatural against the forest's organic chaos. "It's probably just a root or something," Buddy Ethan said, but Noah shook his head, insistent. "No, Dad, it's under there, like in Mom's story about the forest people." Ethan's heart twinged at the mention of Sarah's tales, bedtime stories she'd spun about magical beings hidden in the woods. He humored Noah, stepping toward the disturbed earth, his ranger instincts kicking in. The ground was too neat, too deliberate, like someone had dug and covered it quickly. Then he heard it, a faint rhythmic tapping, muffled but undeniable, coming from below. His pulse quickened. "Noah, stay back," he said sharply, dropping to his knees and clawing at the dirt with his hands. The soil was loose, yielding easily, but the deeper he dug, the more his gut twisted. This wasn't natural. Noah hovered nearby, wide-eyed, clutching his notebook like a shield. "Is it a treasure, Dad?" he asked, voice small but hopeful. Ethan didn't answer, his fingers scraping against something solid wood crudely nailed together. A box. His breath caught as he uncovered a corner, revealing rough planks sealed tight. The tapping grew louder, more desperate, and now he could hear a faint muffled cry. "Hold on!" he shouted, not knowing if whoever was inside could hear him. He dug faster, dirt caking under his nails, his heart pounding with a mix of dread and urgency. Noah, ignoring the order to stay back, dropped beside him, small hands scooping dirt with surprising determination. "We're gonna save them, right, Dad?" he said, more a statement than a question. Ethan nodded, gritting his teeth as he pried at the wood with a stick, splintering it open. The lid gave way with a groan, revealing a woman curled inside her elegant blouse. Barely soiled her face, pale but alive, her dark eyes wide with fear and relief. She gasped for air, her trembling hands reaching for Ethan as he lifted her out. Her body, light but rigid with shock. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse but steady, gripping his arm with surprising strength. "I have no one, but if I die, she'll never know." Her words hung in the air, cryptic and heavy, before her eyes fluttered, and she slumped against him, conscious, but overwhelmed. Ethan's mind raced. Who was this woman, and who was the she spoke of? Noah stared, his mouth open. Notebook forgotten on the ground. Is she one of the forest people, Dad? He whispered, awestruck. Ethan shook his head, his ranger training kicking in as he checked her pulse, steady but fast. Her dark hair was matted, her high cheekbones flushed, and an expensive silver bracelet glinted on her wrist, inscribed with, "To Olivia with gratitude." M. No wallet, no phone, just the bracelet, and her pristine clothes out of place in this crude wooden coffin. Ethan's first instinct was to call for help, but something stopped him. The box, the fresh dirt, this was no accident. Someone had meant to kill her. A hospital might draw attention, and whoever did this could be watching. "We're taking her home, Noah," he said, his voice firm to mask his unease. "She needs us now." Noah nodded solemnly, picking up his notebook and trailing Ethan as he carried the woman to his battered pickup truck parked at the trailhead. The drive back to their cabin was quiet, the woman wrapped in Ethan's jacket in the back seat, Noah stealing glances at her. "She's pretty like Mom," he said softly, and Ethan's chest tightened. Sarah had been gone 5 years, her absence a constant ache, but Noah's words stirred something else, a flicker of protectiveness for this stranger. The cabin glowed warmly in the midday light, its wide windows catching the sun as Ethan carried the woman inside, settling her on the worn leather couch. Noah hovered, clutching a glass of water Ethan had asked him to fetch. "Can I help, Dad?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the woman. Ethan nodded, checking her for injuries, light bruises on her wrists, likely from restraints, but no cuts or broken bones. His first aid kit, stocked for wilderness emergencies, lay open beside him as he cleaned the dirt from her hands. "What's her name, Dad?" Noah asked, peering at the bracelet. "Olivia, I think," Ethan replied, reading the inscription again. "We'll wait till she wakes up to be sure." The boy nodded, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sketching the woman in his notebook with careful strokes. Ethan watched his son, marveling at his calm curiosity, a trait so like Sarah's. The woman, Olivia, if the bracelet was right, stirred after an hour, her eyes fluttering open to take in the unfamiliar surroundings. The cabin's interior was simple, but warm cedar walls lined with Noah's colorful drawings, a stone fireplace crackling softly, and a shelf of field guides beside a photo of Sarah holding a newborn Noah. Olivia's gaze darted from the photo to Ethan, then to Noah, who offered her a shy smile. "You're safe now," Ethan said gently, handing her the water. "I'm Ethan Caldwell, and this is my son Noah. We found you in the woods. Can you tell me your name?" She sipped the water, her hands trembling slightly. "Olivia Harper," she said, her voice clearer now, with a refined edge that suggested a life far from these mountains. "I'm a lawyer from Knoxville. Thank you for saving me." Her eyes sharp, despite her ordeal, studied Ethan, as if weighing whether to trust him. "What happened out there?" Ethan asked, keeping his tone steady for Noah's sake. Olivia's expression darkened, her fingers tightening around the glass. "Someone I trusted tried to kill me," she said, her voice low. "Victor Grayson, my law partner. I found something he didn't want me to know." Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd seen enough in his years as a ranger to know the world could be cruel, but this, burying a woman alive, was a new kind of evil. Noah, listening intently, piped up. "Was it a bad secret?" "Like in Mom's stories, when the forest hides things." Olivia's lips twitched, a faint smile breaking through her tension. "Something like that, Noah. A very bad secret." Ethan shot his son a look, but Noah's question seemed to ease Olivia, who leaned back, exhaustion overtaking her again. "You're safe here," Ethan repeated, though his mind was racing. A lawyer from Knoxville buried in his forest. This wasn't just a crime. It was personal. Someone had chosen this spot, thinking no one would find her. "Rest now," he said. We'll figure out what's next when you're stronger." Olivia nodded, her eyes, already closing, the weight of her ordeal pulling her under. Noah, still clutching his notebook, whispered, "She's like the lady in Mom's story, Dad. The one who got lost, but came back." Ethan ruffled his son's hair, hiding his unease. "Maybe, buddy. But this isn't a story. This is real." As Noah returned to his sketching, Ethan stood by the window staring out at the forest that had hidden such a dark secret. He didn't know who Olivia Harper was beyond her name, or what she'd uncovered to make someone want her dead. But he knew one thing: the moment he'd pulled her from that box, his quiet life with Noah had changed forever. The forest, once a place of solace, now held questions he wasn't sure he wanted answered. Yet, as he glanced at Olivia sleeping soundly, and Noah drawing her as a forest person with a crown of leaves, Ethan felt a resolve settle in his chest. Whatever came next, he'd face it for his son, for this stranger, and for the fragile hope that even in the darkest places, something good could still be found. The soft glow of dawn filtered through the cedar-framed windows of Ethan Caldwell's cabin, casting a warm haze over the living room where Olivia Harper lay on the couch, wrapped in a quilt Sarah had sewn years ago. The great Smoky Mountains outside stood silent, their mist-shrouded peaks a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing in Ethan's mind. It had been 2 days since he and Noah had pulled Olivia from that makeshift wooden coffin buried in the forest, her whispered words, "I have no one. But if I die, she'll never know," still echoing in his thoughts. The cabin, nestled at the edge of the Smokies in Tennessee, was a haven of simplicity: cedar walls adorned with Noah's watercolor sketches of squirrels and ferns, a stone fireplace where embers glowed faintly, and a single framed photo of Sarah, her chestnut curls catching the light as she smiled at a toddler, Noah. Ethan, 40, with his weathered hands and quiet strength, had built this place to hold his family together after Sarah's death in a car accident 5 years prior. Now it sheltered a stranger whose presence stirred both protectiveness and unease. Olivia, a 35-year-old lawyer from Knoxville, was recovering her physical strength, returning, but her sharp, dark eyes betrayed a mind racing with secrets. Ethan watched her from the kitchen where he stirred oatmeal for Noah, who sat cross-legged on the floor, teaching Olivia how to draw a red-tailed hawk from his nature journal. "You gotta make the wings pointy like this," Noah said, his 7-year-old voice earnest, as he guided her hand across the paper. Olivia, wearing one of Ethan's oversized flannel shirts, the sleeves rolled up 4 times, smiled faintly, her movements careful but engaged. "Like this?" she asked, mimicking his strokes, her elegant fingers clumsy with the crayon. Noah nodded, beaming. "Yeah, you're getting it." Miss Olivia, Ethan's chest tightened at the sight. Noah's easy trust in this woman, so like Sarah's warmth with him, felt both comforting and dangerous. He hadn't let anyone close since Sarah, pouring his love into Noah and his work as a park ranger patrolling the Smokies trails and teaching kids about conservation. Olivia's arrival with her polished city accent and the trauma etched into her flinches at sudden noises was a disruption he hadn't anticipated. Yet, he couldn't turn her away, not after what she'd endured. As Noah chattered about hawk migration patterns, Ethan set the oatmeal on the table and approached Olivia, who looked up, her expression guarded but grateful. "How are you feeling?" he asked, keeping his voice low to avoid startling her. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, the silver bracelet inscribed "To Olivia with gratitude" glinting on her wrist. "Better," she said, her voice steadier than yesterday. "The dizziness is gone. I can't thank you enough, Ethan. You and Noah saved my life." Her eyes flicked to the boy, who was now adding a tree to his drawing. "Most people would have called the police right away." Ethan leaned against the couch, his gray eyes studying her. I'm still wondering if I should. That box, the way it was buried. Someone wanted you gone, Olivia. Permanently. I need to know why, for Noah's sake. She nodded her lips, pressing into a thin line. I owe you that much. She glanced at Noah, who was absorbed in his art, then lowered her voice. I'm a lawyer, as I told you. I specialize in corporate litigation at Grayson and Harper in Knoxville. My partner Victor Grayson and I built the firm from nothing. 6 months ago, I started noticing irregularities in a case we were handling, a class action lawsuit against a pharmaceutical company. Evidence was missing, documents altered. I traced it to Victor. He was tampering with case files hiding proof of the company's negligence to protect a client who'd paid him off. Millions were at stake, Ethan, and lives people who'd been hurt by faulty drugs. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd seen greed destroy lives in subtler ways, like poachers in the Smokies or developers eyeing the forest for profit. But this was colder, more calculated. So you confronted him? He asked. Olivia shook her head, her fingers tracing the bracelet. Not directly. I was gathering evidence quietly. I didn't want to believe he'd betray me. We'd worked together for 10 years. But last week I was supposed to meet a whistleblower from the company in Gatlinburg. I checked into a hotel, and that's the last thing I remember before waking up in that box. Her voice cracked and she closed her eyes, steadying herself. He must have drugged me, had someone bury me out here where no one would look. Noah looked up, sensing the shift in her tone. Were you scared, Miss Olivia? He asked, his hazel eyes wide. She hesitated, then offered a small smile. Very scared, Noah. But you and your dad found me, so I'm okay now. The boy nodded, satisfied, and returned to his drawing, but Ethan caught the tremor in her hands. You said something when we found you, he pressed gently, about someone who would never know if you died. Who's she? Olivia's expression softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through her composed exterior. My mother, she said quietly. I was adopted at 8, after years in foster care. My records were sealed, but I've been searching for her for years. A few weeks ago, I got a lead she might be in Memphis, or was, last I heard. If I died out there. Her voice trailed off and she shook her head. She'd never know I was looking for her. Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of family lost. He thought of Sarah, of the dreams they'd had for a house full of kids, now just him and Noah in this quiet cabin. I'm sorry, he said simply. That's a heavy thing to carry. Olivia met his gaze, her eyes searching his. You know what it's like, don't you? Losing someone who anchors you. He didn't answer, but the silence between them spoke enough. Noah broke it, holding up his drawing, a hawk soaring over a forest with a stick-figure woman below her dark hair, unmistakable. This is you, Miss Olivia, he said proudly. You're like the hawk, flying free now. Olivia's eyes glistened, and she took the drawing, her fingers brushing the paper. It's beautiful, Noah. Thank you. The moment lingered fragile and warm until Ethan cleared his throat. Breakfast's ready, buddy. Let's give Olivia some space. As Noah scampered to the table, Ethan helped Olivia sit up, noticing how she winced at the movement. You're not fully healed yet, he said. Stay as long as you need. This place is off the grid. No one'll find you here. She nodded, gratitude softening her features. I don't know how to repay you. Just stay alive, Ethan said, half smiling. That's enough. The day passed quietly, Olivia resting, while Noah trailed Ethan outside to check the cabin's perimeter, a habit from his ranger days. The forest felt different now, its shadows deeper, as if hiding more than wildlife. That evening, as Noah slept, Ethan sat with Olivia by the fire, the crackling logs filling the silence. She'd changed into another of his flannel shirts, her dark hair loose, and she looked less like the polished lawyer from Knoxville and more like someone who belonged here in this simple world. "I need to contact someone," she said abruptly. "Claire Dawson, an associate at the firm. She's the only one I trust. She can help me get the evidence I need to expose Victor." Ethan frowned. "You sure about her? If Victor went this far, he might have others watching." Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "Claire's been with me since law school. She's clean. But I'll need a phone. Mine's gone, probably destroyed." Ethan rubbed his jaw, weighing the risk. "There's a general store in Townsend, 20 miles out. I can get you a burner phone tomorrow. But we keep this quiet. No one knows you're here, not even my ranger buddies." She agreed, her eyes steady. "I understand. And Ethan, I'm sorry for dragging you and Noah into this." He shook his head. "We dragged ourselves in when we dug you out. Noah heard you first. He's got ears like a fox." Olivia smiled, a real one, this time softening her sharp features. "He's special, like his dad." Ethan looked away, the compliment stirring something he wasn't ready to name. That night, as Olivia slept on the couch, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his bedroom. Noah's soft snores drifted from the next room, but Ethan's mind was on the woman downstairs. Her story checked out. He'd searched her name on his old laptop, finding headlines about Olivia Harper, rising star at Grayson and Harper, missing after a supposed hiking accident near the Smokies. Victor Grayson had issued a statement, all polished grief, claiming search efforts were ongoing. Ethan wasn't fooled. The man had buried her alive, thinking the forest would keep his secret. But Noah had heard what no one else could, and now they were all tangled in something bigger than Ethan's quiet life. The next morning he drove to Townsend, leaving Noah with Olivia, who promised to teach the boy how to braid grass into bracelets, a skill she'd learned in foster care. At the store, Ethan bought a cheap burner phone, his eyes scanning the parking lot for anything out of place. Back at the cabin, he handed it to Olivia, who wasted no time texting Claire a cryptic message. "Alive. Need your help. We'll call tonight." As they waited for Claire's response, Noah dragged Olivia outside to the meadow behind the cabin, where wildflowers bloomed in patches of gold and purple. Ethan watched from the porch, his rifle nearby, a precaution he hadn't needed in years. Olivia laughed as Noah showed her how to blow dandelion seeds, her guarded demeanor softening. But Ethan's unease grew. That night, as he checked the cabin's locks, he spotted movement in the trees, a shadow too human to be a deer. His heart raced as he grabbed his flashlight, sweeping the beam across the forest. Nothing. Maybe it was his imagination. But the forest felt alive with secrets, and Ethan knew they weren't safe yet. Olivia, unaware of the shadow, sat with Noah, reading him one of Sarah's old storybooks about forest spirits. Her voice, steady and warm, filled the cabin, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that danger was closing in. Olivia's fight was just beginning, and whether he liked it or not, he and Noah were part of it now. The moon hung low over Knoxville, Tennessee, its pale light glinting off the glass towers of the downtown business district, as Ethan Caldwell parked his battered pickup truck in a shadowed alley 2 blocks from the offices of Grayson and Harper. The Great Smoky Mountains, where he and his 7-year-old son Noah had found Olivia Harper, buried alive 2 weeks ago, felt a world away from this urban maze of concrete and steel. Ethan, de 40, with his weathered hands and steady gray eyes, adjusted the earpiece connected to the burner phone in his pocket, his heart thudding with a mix of adrenaline and unease. Beside him, Olivia, now 35 and barely recognizable with her dark hair dyed blonde and cropped short, checked the tiny recording device tucked into the pocket of her borrowed jacket, Ethan's sister's old denim, too big but practical. Her sharp features were set with determination, but Ethan caught the flicker of fear in her dark eyes. a reminder of the trauma she'd endured in that wooden box beneath the forest floor. "You sure about this?" Ethan asked, his voice low, his ranger instinct screaming that walking into Victor Grayson's domain was a gamble. Olivia nodded, her jaw tight. "It's the only way, Ethan. Claire's got the financial records, but we need Victor's confession to tie him to my attempted murder. Without it, he'll walk." Ethan exhaled, glancing at the burner phone's screen, where a text from Claire Dawson. Olivia's trusted colleague confirmed she'd be waiting nearby to upload the recording to a secure server. The plan was simple but perilous. Olivia would confront Victor in his office after hours, using her knowledge of the firm's security protocols to slip inside, while Ethan monitored from the truck ready to intervene if things went south. Noah was safe with Ethan's mother Ellen in Gatlinburg, or so Ethan thought, his chest tightening at the thought of his son's trusting hazel eyes. "Stay sharp," Ethan said, handing Olivia a second burner phone. "Any trouble, you call me. I'll be there in 2 minutes." Olivia's lips curved in a faint smile, softening her tense expression. "You're risking a lot for me, Ethan. I won't forget it." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the gratitude. "Just come back in one piece. Noah's gotten attached." Her smile faded and she nodded, slipping out of the truck and disappearing into the night. The streets were quiet. The city's pulse slowed after 9 p.m., but Ethan's senses were on high alert as he watched Olivia approach the sleek glass building, her blonde disguise blending with the shadows. She swiped a stolen keycard Claire's doing at the side entrance, and the door clicked open. Ethan's earpiece crackled as Olivia whispered, "I'm in," heading to the top floor. The Grayson and Harper offices occupied the penthouse suite, a symbol of Victor's ambition, and Ethan pictured Olivia navigating the polished halls, her footsteps muffled on the carpet. He gripped the steering wheel, his mind flashing to the cabin in the Smokies, where Noah's drawings covered the fridge and Sarah's photo watched over them. He'd built that life to shield his son from the world's cruelty, yet here he was, entangled in a plot that could end in violence. The earpiece crackled again. "Victor's here." Olivia whispered, her voice steady but taut. "He's in his office working late." "I'm going in." Ethan's stomach knotted. "Stick to the plan, Olivia. Get the confession and get out." But the line went silent, and his unease grew. Inside, Olivia pushed open the heavy oak door to Victor Grayson's office, the recording device already rolling in her pocket. Victor, a lean man in his late 40s, with slicked-back hair and a tailored suit, looked up from a stack of documents, his eyes widening as if he'd seen a ghost. "Olivia," he gasped, standing so fast his chair tipped back. "You're alive." His shock morphed into a practiced smile, but Olivia saw the calculation in his cold blue eyes. "Thank God. We thought you were lost in the Smokies." She closed the door behind her, her voice icy. "Save it, Victor. I know what you did. The box, the forest, you thought no one would find me." Victor's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly, leaning against his desk. "You're not well, Olivia. The stress of the firm, that hiking accident, you're confused. Let me get you help." She stepped closer, her blonde hair catching the glow of his desk lamp. "I'm not confused. I know about the pharmaceutical case, Victor. You altered evidence, took bribes to bury the truth about those faulty drugs. People died because of you, and when I started digging, you tried to kill me." Victor's face hardened, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "You can't prove anything. You disappeared, had a breakdown. The partners believe me now." Olivia's voice was steel. "Why did you need me dead then? If it was all above board, why bury me alive?" Victor's composure cracked, his voice rising. "Because you wouldn't stop. You and your bleeding heart always chasing justice like it's personal. This firm was mine. Your name's on the letterhead, but I built it. Those payoffs were my way out, my retirement. You were going to ruin everything. Olivia's heart raced, but she kept her tone calm, knowing the recorder was catching every word. So you drugged me, had your men build that box, and left me to die. But you didn't count on a kid hearing me, did you? A kid and his dad who dug me out with their bare hands? Victor's eyes darted to the door, his hands clenching. You're recording this, aren't you? Think you're clever. He lunged, not for her, but for a letter opener on the desk, its blade glinting. Olivia dodged her lawyer's instincts sharp, but before she could react, the door burst open, not with Ethan, but with Noah, his small frame trembling as he clutched his backpack. "Miss Olivia!" he shouted, his voice piercing the tension. Victor spun, grabbing Noah by the arm, the letter opener dangerously close. "Stay back, Olivia, or the kid gets hurt," Ethan's voice roared through the earpiece. "Noah, Olivia." "Coming." His truck door slammed in the background, and Olivia's mind raced. Noah must have snuck away from Ellen's, determined to help after overhearing Ethan's plans. Victor let him go, Olivia said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "He's a child. This is between us." Victor's grip tightened, his eyes wild. "You think you can ruin me? I'll take everyone down with me." Olivia's gaze locked on Noah's, seeing Sarah's courage in his trembling lips. "Noah, remember the hawk," she said softly, referencing his drawing. "You're brave like it. Just stay still." Noah nodded, his eyes wide but trusting. Olivia edged closer, her voice low and deliberate. "Victor, you're on tape. The police are already on their way. Claire sent the files. It's over. Let him go, and maybe the judge will go easier on you." Victor hesitated, his grip loosening, and in that split second, Ethan barreled through the door, tackling him to the floor. The letter opener skidded across the carpet as Ethan pinned Victor, his ranger strength, overpowering the lawyer's desperate thrashing. "Noah, get to Olivia!" Ethan barked, and Noah ran to her, burying his face in her side. Olivia wrapped her arms around him, her heart pounding as security guards, alerted by the commotion, rushed in. "He tried to kill me!" Victor shouted, struggling under Ethan's hold. "They attacked me!" Olivia pulled the recorder from her pocket, holding it up. "He confessed to everything: bribery, evidence, tampering, and trying to murder me." "It's all here," the guards hesitated, then restrained Victor as Claire Dawson burst in, press credentials flashing. "I've sent the audio to the police and the Knoxville News-Sentinel," she announced, her voice firm. "This goes live in 10 minutes. Victor's face crumpled, his fight draining as the reality sank in. Ethan stood brushing off his hands and pulled Noah close, his eyes blazing with relief and fury. "You okay, buddy?" Noah nodded, clinging to Ethan's leg. "I wanted to help Dad, like you helped Miss Olivia." Ethan's throat tightened, pride and fear warring in his chest. He looked at Olivia, who was pale but composed, the recorder still in her hand. "You got what you needed?" he asked. She nodded, her voice soft. "Thanks to you. And Noah." As the police arrived, cuffing Victor and leading him away, Olivia sank into a chair, exhaustion overtaking her. Ethan knelt beside her, Noah still glued to his side. "You scared me half to death," he said, his voice gruff. "Both of you." Olivia managed a weak smile. "I didn't expect Noah to show up. He's braver than both of us." Noah looked up, his curls damp with sweat. "I heard you talking about the bad man, Dad. I didn't want him to hurt Miss Olivia again." Ethan ruffled his son's hair, his heart swelling despite the chaos. The office with its sleek furniture and city skyline view felt alien compared to their cabin in the Smokies, but in that moment, Ethan felt a strange clarity. He'd come to protect Olivia, but Noah's courage and Olivia's quick thinking had turned the tide. As they gave statements to the police, the city lights twinkling outside, Ethan realized this wasn't just about justice for Olivia, it was about the bond forming between them, forged in danger and trust. The forest had brought them together, but this night had bound them in a way Ethan couldn't yet define. As they stepped into the cool night air, Noah's hand in his and Olivia beside them, Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. Victor's arrest was a victory, but the shadows of his actions lingered, and Olivia's search for her mother and her place in the world was far from done. The crisp autumn air swept through the Great Smoky Mountains, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and pine. As Ethan Caldwell stood in a clearing near his cabin, hammering the final stake into a small circle of smooth river stones. It was late October, 6 months since Victor Grayson's arrest, and the forest floor was blanketed in hues of amber and crimson. The stones marked the spot where Ethan and his 7-year-old son Noah had dug Olivia Harper from a wooden box buried beneath the earth, her desperate knocking a sound Ethan would never forget. The clearing, once a place of horror, now felt sacred, transformed by intention into a symbol of survival. Ethan, chapter 40. His broad shoulders dusted with sawdust, stepped back to survey his work, his gray eyes softening as Noah ran up, clutching a handful of wildflowers, goldenrod, and asters plucked from the meadow. For Miss Olivia, Noah said, his chestnut curls bouncing, his hazel eyes bright with purpose. Ethan ruffled his son's hair, his heart swelling. The cabin, a sturdy cedar haven he'd built for his late wife Sarah and Noah, stood nearby, its windows glowing with the warmth of a fire inside. Olivia, now 35, had become a fixture in their lives, her presence as natural as the Smokies themselves. She'd moved to a small house in Gatlinburg, close enough for daily visits, and had shifted her career, focusing her legal expertise on pro bono cases for foster children, a mission born from her own past as an orphan. Tonight, they were holding a quiet ceremony to honor her survival, a moment to reclaim this place from its dark memory. Inside the cabin, Olivia arranged a vase of Noah's wildflowers on the kitchen table, her blonde hair grown out to its natural dark waves falling over one of Ethan's flannel shirts, now a staple of her casual wardrobe. The past 6 months had changed her, softening the sharp edges of the Knoxville lawyer she'd been. She'd faced Victor's trial, testifying with a calm strength that had captivated the courtroom, her recorded confession sealing his fate. A 20-year sentence for attempted murder and fraud. But the victory hadn't erased her trauma. Nightmares still woke her, gasps echoing in her new home, though she'd learned to ground herself by sketching with Noah or walking the forest trails with Ethan. The cabin's cozy interior, with Noah's watercolor hawks pinned to the walls and Sarah's photo on the mantel, felt like a sanctuary, a stark contrast to her old life in a sterile Knoxville apartment. As she set the table for dinner, venison stew, a recipe she'd learned from Ethan's mother, Ellen, Olivia's thoughts drifted to her search for her birth mother. She'd tracked down a lead in Memphis, only to learn her mother had died 2 years earlier, a quiet seamstress who'd never known her daughter was looking for her. The grief had hit hard, but it led to a discovery: a half-sister, Mara, 32, a nurse in Chattanooga. They'd met last month, Mara's warm brown eyes mirroring Olivia's, their shared laughter over childhood quirks, loving thunderstorms, hating broccoli, a bridge across lost years. Mara was coming tonight, her first visit to the Smokies, a step toward the family Olivia had craved. Ethan and Noah returned, their boots' muddy faces flushed from the cool air. "The circle's done, Miss Olivia," Noah announced, thrusting the wildflowers at her. It's for you, so you remember you're strong. Olivia knelt, hugging him tightly, her throat tight. Thank you, Noah. It's perfect. His earnestness, so like Sarah's, stirred a fierce protectiveness in her. Noah had become her shadow, teaching her to spot deer tracks and weaving grass bracelets she wore proudly. Ethan watched his expression unreadable, but his eyes held a warmth that hadn't been there before Olivia's arrival. He'd been cautious, guarding his heart since Sarah's death 5 years ago, but Olivia's courage and Noah's adoration had chipped away at his walls. "Dinner smells good," he said, breaking the moment. "Mara's on her way." Olivia nodded, standing. "She'll be here soon. I'm nervous. She's never seen me like this." She gestured at the flannel, the wildflowers, the cabin's simplicity. Ethan smiled a rare, full grin. "She'll see you. That's enough." His words, simple but weighted, lingered as they sat to eat, Noah chattering about a fox he'd seen. Mara arrived as the sun dipped below the mountains, her compact car crunching up the gravel drive. She stepped out, her curly hair pulled back, her nurse's scrubs swapped for jeans and a sweater. Olivia met her at the door, their embrace awkward but genuine, a new bond still finding its shape. "This place is beautiful," Mara said, her eyes scanning the cabin, landing on Noah's drawings. "You weren't kidding about starting over." Olivia laughed, guiding her inside. "It's Ethan and Noah's world. I'm just borrowing it." Dinner was lively, Noah regaling Mara with tales of the forest lady he'd saved, his version of Olivia's rescue, now a heroic saga. Mara listened, her gaze flicking between Olivia's easy smiles and Ethan's quiet attentiveness, sensing the unspoken connection. After dinner, they walked to the stone circle, the sky a tapestry of stars. Noah carried a lantern, its glow dancing on the trees, while Ethan held a small wooden box he'd carved, etched with a hawk, Noah's symbol for Olivia. "This is for you," Ethan said, handing it to her. Inside was a pendant, a simple silver circle with a tiny hawk charm, "to remind you of where you came back to life." Olivia's eyes glistened, her fingers tracing the charm. "You didn't have to," she whispered, but her voice carried gratitude deeper than words. The ceremony was simple. Noah scattered his wildflowers around the stone circle, declaring himself the flower keeper, while Mara read a poem she'd written about roots finding new soil, her voice steady but emotional. Olivia stood at the center, the pendant around her neck, and spoke softly. "This spot was supposed to be my end," she said, her eyes on the stones. "But it's where I began again. You all gave me that, Ethan, Noah, and now Mara. I was alone, but not anymore." Ethan felt a lump in his throat, his hand brushing Noah's shoulder. The boy looked up, whispering, "She's happy now, right, Dad?" Ethan nodded, unable to speak. Mara squeezed Olivia's hand, her own eyes wet. "You found us," she said. "That's what matters." As they returned to the cabin, Noah yawned and Ethan carried him to bed, tucking him under a quilt, with a promise of pancakes tomorrow. Mara lingered, chatting with Olivia about their childhoods, piecing together shared fragments. Ethan watched from the porch, the night air cool against his skin. Olivia joined him later, Mara asleep on the couch, the cabin quiet, save for the fire's crackle. "Thank you for tonight," she said, her voice soft, "for making this place mean something new." Ethan met her gaze, his heart racing. "You made it mean something new, Olivia. For me and Noah." The months that followed wove their lives tighter. Olivia's work with foster children flourished, her legal briefs now filed from a small office in Gatlinburg, where Noah often visited, sketching at her desk. She and Mara grew closer, planning visits to Chattanooga, while Ethan took a new role leading conservation workshops at a wilderness center. Olivia funded a project that let him share his love of the Smokies with kids like Noah. Their bond deepened, not rushed but inevitable, built on late-night talks by the fire and Noah's insistence that Olivia join their stargazing. One evening, as spring bloomed, Olivia sat with Noah in the meadow, helping him write a picture book about the forest lady who became family. "She's brave like you," Noah said, his crayon tracing a figure with dark hair and a hawk pendant. Olivia smiled her hand over his, "And she's lucky because she found people who believed in her." Ethan, watching from the cabin, felt Sarah's absence less sharply replaced by a quiet hope. He'd once thought love was a finite thing, spent with Sarah, but Olivia and Noah had shown him otherwise love grew where trust was planted. A year after the rescue, they stood again in the stone circle, now a place of annual pilgrimage. Noah, taller, now scattered fresh wildflowers, while Mara and her new fiancé joined them, laughter mingling with the wind. Olivia took Ethan's hand, her hawk pendant catching the sunlight. "I was lost here," she said, her voice steady. "But you and Noah showed me what home is not a place, but people who stay, who fight for you." Ethan pulled her close, his voice low. "You fought for yourself, Olivia. We just held the light." Noah ran up, grinning. "Can Miss Olivia stay forever?" "Dad?" Ethan looked at Olivia, her eyes reflecting the forest's green, and smiled. "If she wants to." Olivia nodded, tears falling. "I do." As they walked back to the cabin, Noah leading the way with his lantern, Ethan realized the forest had given them more than survival. It had given them each other. The stones behind them stood as a quiet testament. From the darkest depths life could rise, rooted in courage, and the bonds that refused to break.